Good morning, depending where everybody is. I'm Meir Weinstein with Baruch Ben-Yoseph. Welcome to the Never Again Live tonight or this morning. We're live from Har Bayit, from the Temple Mount, for the weekly Parsha, the weekly Torah Parsha. And the weekly Torah Parsha for this week is Parshah's Tzav. And it's also this Shabbat Hagadol. So there's a lot to talk about. And Baruch is going to be explaining the Parsha and how it's relevant to everything today. We're living in very significant times right now, as everybody is aware, with the whole issue in Israel with the so-called right-wing government and judicial reform issues and these protests. And tonight there was a protest in Israel with people identifying with the right wing in Israel, and it's unbelievable that without funding or anything, he managed to pull off around 100,000 Jews just like that to show up in support of having these judicial reforms. But anyways, be it as it may, we're moving forward with our weekly Torah Parsha from the Temple Mount. We want to see changes happen to the Temple Mount. We want an area where Jews could learn and nobody bothers us on the Temple Mount, learning Torah, discussing Torah properly without being rushed out or anything like second or third class people. And we want Torah learning to actually eventually flourish on the Temple Mount. So, Baruch, it's great to be with you. How are you today? And explain the Parsha.
Okay, good. Like you said, good evening or good morning. We're back up here on the Temple Mount for our weekly Torah class from the Temple Mount. And thank God that we have this great innovation here of this smartphone that allows us. A lot of rabbis attack the smartphone because,
Yep.
but at the same time, we see the benefit of it, that we can come up here. We can't bring up books, okay, but we can bring up a smartphone and we can learn from the smartphone. We can pray from the smartphone. We can have this international broadcast of Torah from the Temple Mount because of the smartphone. So it's a God-given innovation, and we shouldn't ignore the fact that we have the opportunity to use these innovations. Okay, like a lot of people question, here we are. We're now on the eastern side to the Temple Mount. We're facing the place of the temple where temporarily the Dome of the Rock sits over the Holy of Holies, and we're here the our fellow Jews here praying, as we can see, on the eastern side. And here's a VIP is here, Yudah Glick. Rabbi Yudah Glick, former Knesset member. Hey, say hello to the people, Jews in Chutz La'aretz.
Shalom to everybody. Shalom.
There you go. Look.
Hey, shalom.
Yehuda Glick, wonderful. Maybe he could say a few words.
A few words.
Yehuda Glick, we're doing a Parsha from the Temple Mount every week.
Wow.
Great to have you. What an opportunity.
Okay, just get a little farther away from the people that are davening here. Okay, how are you? Good morning. I don't know who I'm talking to, but shalom.
Meir Weinstein.
Meir Weinstein.
Shalom, Meir Weinstein from Canada. You're here with us on the holiest place in the world. And as we're talking about the Parsha this week, the Parsha getting ready to actually start the work in Temple Mount, in the temple. That's the 7 days of Miluim, 7 days of people that are the priests that are beginning their actual inauguration of their service in the temple. So we know that serving the temple has a lot of demands of laws and rules, how to do it. And we hope to be able to renew that worship as soon as possible. And we hope that to be ready next week to be able to announce Hashem's kingdom in the world on Passover, when he first took out the people of Israel and they were declared as a nation, as a free nation, to serve him And the peak of that whole service is the building of the temple. Tivi'emo v'tita'emo bahar nachlatcha, machon l'shivtecha. We're waiting to establish a foundation for his dwelling, for his divine presence in the world.
Thank you.
Shalom.
Welcome. Okay, there we
Shalom. Thank you very much.
there we have it.
Wow, that's
Yisrael
a real treat.
Yisrael Danziger is here with us, and he reminded us that
Yes.
that today is the yahrzeit of Rachel Manning, a follower of Rabbi Kahana, of course.
Right.
Passed away. It's already now how many years? 29 years since she passed
Wow.
away. Okay, so this
Wow.
Torah learning today should be in her memory. Rachel Manning was a righteous Jew who lived in Kiryat Arba and died in an Israeli jail.
Right.
Okay, so before we get to the this week's portion, as you mentioned, this Shabbat, this coming Shabbat is Shabbat Gadol. Now, it's interesting that now Shabbat Gadol was the Shabbat, was the Sabbath before we left Egypt. It was the last Sabbath that we did in Egypt before we left, and we were redeemed on Passover. That Sabbath came out on the 10th of Nisan, which this year, lo and behold, it comes out on the 10th of Nisan, which means that Passover this year is coming out on the exact day that we left Egypt. Okay, so that's a very important point. I don't know if we'll achieve anything, but if the Jews would take that into account, maybe they would work harder to attain the redemption that we're seeking here on the Temple Mount, throughout the land of Israel, throughout the world. So why is it called the Shabbat Gadol, the Great Sabbath? Because on that day, the 10th day of Nisan, a great miracle occurred in Egypt. Was that Moses told the Jews, everybody get your Paschal lamb, your Passover offering, and tie it to your bedposts. Take your little sheep. Okay, remember a Passover offering can't be older than a year old. So take the little sheep, tie it to your bedpost until you're commanded to sacrifice it on the eve of Passover. So what happened? Why is this important? Because the lamb was the god was considered the god of Egypt. They worshipped the lamb. They worshipped the sheep. And by taking their god and tying it to their bedposts, there's basically embarrassing them that their god is, it's not a god. It has no power. And we tie it to our bedposts. And for 4 days they can't do anything about it. The Egyptians, they're totally powerless to stop the Jews from tying the god of Egypt to their bedposts. And when they asked them, why are you doing this, the Jews told them, because in a few days we're gonna slaughter the sheep and offer it as a offering to God, and that even made them even more angry. So the Sabbath, the Great Sabbath, is because of the miracle that happened. That the Jews stood up. They've been slaves for many years and had been oppressed by the Egyptians. And yet, when the time came when they were ordered by Moses through ordered by God through Moses to take the God of Egypt and embarrass the God of Egypt, embarrass the Egyptians and challenge them, they stood up and did it. They fulfilled this commandment. Now, let's try to understand the significance of this. Can you imagine today? Okay, imagine today the Jews being told, okay, listen, a prophet comes and tells the Jews, okay, God commanded us, we have to take down these mosques over here that are sitting on the Temple Mount so that we can rebuild the temple. And the Jews then standing up and saying, of course, yes, absolutely, right away. We're going to take the mosques down, and we don't care if 100 million Muslims attack us because we believe in God and trust in Him, that is the comparison that has to be made. Or the Jews being told, you have to take down the Vatican in Rome because it's a place of idolatry. Can you imagine the Jews upsetting the entire Catholic world because God commanded them to do that? That's the equivalent. So, despite the fact that the Jews were oppressed and slaves, they rose to the occasion in Egypt and fulfilled a tremendous commandment, a sanctification of God's name, to take the God of Egypt and to tie it to the bedpost and then slaughter it in front of the Egyptians. Okay, here here's the prayer service going on. Now it's saying Kedusha. Oh, he already power. We missed Kedusha. Okay. In any event, so I mean, Meir, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think the Jews could rise to the occasion in this generation?
I think the Jews have to rise to the occasion with those who want to destroy Judaism in Israel.
It's unbelievable. See, yesterday you mentioned the pouring out of loyal Jews to demand that the government continue with the judicial reform, and at the same time, of course, the leftists are protesting. And it's interesting is that I was driving through Jerusalem, I was stuck in the traffic, and for the most part, who are the leftists that are protesting? They're basically they're not elderly, but they're older people. Probably most of them are probably retired. They have plenty of time on their hands to go and stand on the streets with flags and protest. There is of course an element of younger people who are what do you call it, anarchists that are the violent crowd. I don't think the older people are violent, but it's just basically they have the time on their hands. They're well-off Ashkenazi Jews who have time in their hands to go stand outside, and the working people like us, we did our protest back in November when we voted for the government to be a right-wing government to put into effect this idea of judicial reform. And it's amazing that these people think that they're democratic. They're democratic by opposing what the majority of people want to do here, which is basically to put an end to the judicial dictatorship that exists here. There is no democracy in Israel. It's a joke. There's a judicial dictatorship. It's the most amazing thing that the judges were able to usurp the power from the government, from the Knesset, and rule over the country for the purpose of destroying the Jewish state. Because the whole concept of a one state for Jews and Arabs, that's where everybody's equal. That's an idea that the judges profess, not the Zionist movement, not the original socialist Zionists, and the revisionist Zionists who wanted a Jewish state. And the people that created the state and gave their lives to the state now are being ruled over by a judicial dictatorship that does everything possible to try to destroy the Jewish state, to the point where they allow Arabs to what they call unification of families and things like that. They allow in thousands and thousands of Arabs who aren't citizens to live in the state of Israel. This goes on all the time, and they allow in, of course, under the law of return, thousands and thousands of non-Jews as if they're Jews, and slowly but surely we're losing the Jewish majority here because of them. So even though this is going on, and even though the Arabs are on their side, we still were able to vote in a right-wing government for the sole purpose of preventing this from happening. And here they are, doing everything possible to prevent this to go into effect, to the point where there's absolute civil disobedience, rioting, a refusal to serve in the army, all kinds of things that these people should be arrested and put on trial for. I mean, if it was right wing, like back in the day when we protested to stop our expulsion from Gush Katif and from the northern Samaria.
Right.
If we protested, if we blocked roads, we were beaten and arrested and tried. Okay, so it's just and throughout the years, you know, the Haredi Jews, when they protest, they're constantly beaten by the police. Um, the Ethiopian Jews, when they protested, were beaten by the police. I mean, the police had no qualm about beating Jews and arresting them and trying them when they weren't leftists. Now that they're leftists, it's amazing. And the right wing minister that's over the police, Itamar Ben-Gvir, when he tries to get the police to enforce the law and keep the roads open, he's laughed at. They ignore him and they do what they want. There is no government in Israel. There's no government. There is a dictatorship of the courts, and they work together with the police. The police are on their side. The army's on their side. And it's interesting is that the question constantly comes up: what'll happen if there's an order from the government to attack Iran, and then the court says to the army, "No, you can't attack Iran." Well,
Right.
who do they listen to? Who's the army going to listen to? I'm sure that the army is going to listen to the court and not the government. Okay, until the court is put in its place, and it's clear that the rule of law is dictated by the government and the Knesset and not the court, then they're going to listen to the court, and that's a very 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 scary scenario. Very very scary scenario. So that's what's going on today in Israel, and of course Benjamin Netanyahu froze the judicial reform for at least a month while the Knesset goes on recess, and to try to work out an agreement with the opposition. So we'll see what happens. I doubt that there will be any kind of agreement. Who knows? In the meantime, Itamar Ben-Gvir threatened to leave the government. In the end, Netanyahu convinced him not to leave the government, and supposedly was promised that he will get the funding for a national unit, a national security unit under his jurisdiction, which could be a very good thing if it happens. We'll see. Obviously, again, the court constantly interferes. When he tried to fire, or not fire actually, to just transfer the head of the police in Tel Aviv because of his inability to prevent the anarchists from blocking the main highway in Tel Aviv, the attorney general intervened and said that he can't do that, and left this officer in charge of the police in Tel Aviv in charge, and he continues to allow the highway to be blocked, causing tens of thousands of citizens to waste their time sitting on the road for hours, and of course ambulances can't pass, and people can't get to their appointments. It's just a terrible thing. I went through that the other night when all of a sudden they came out at nighttime because Netanyahu fired the Minister of Defense, Gallant, and they came out of nowhere, all these people, and blocked the highways. So I was stuck for hours because of them. They have no concern whatsoever for the citizens of Israel, and the whole situation here raises lots and lots of questions. Okay, we have to get going here. We're walking forward. We're going continuing along the eastern wall over here, going towards the north. So that's the again, that's the concept of Shabbat HaGadol, the great Sabbath, the great miracle that occurred on the 10th of Nisan, which was on the Sabbath. And again, like I said, this year, the 10th of Nisan falls out on the Sabbath, this coming Saturday. And part of Shabbat HaGadol, of course, is not only the the commemoration of this miracle, but we also read the Haftorah in the portion. You know, every portion is finished by a Haftorah. In other words, a chapter from the prophets. When there's a special event like Shabbat Gadol, the great Sabbath, then the usual Haftorah is not read for this portion, but rather a special Haftorah is read, and the one that's read this time talks really about the redemption of the world, the final redemption, because that's what we expect to come out of here. So here the rabbi's about to talk, and I'll translate what he says.
Yeah.
חודש האביב, חג המצות, יצאנו ממצרים, אבל התורה מדברת על 3 פעמים, חודש בשנה, חגים של עם ישראל, זה לא חג שיושבים כל אחד בבית שלו וחוגג, זה עושים כל שבת. אבל חשוב, חג שעם ישראל כולם נוספים, כולם נוספים בבית המקדש, עולים, יראה כל כרוכה את בני האדון השם, עולים את בית המקדש. ובחג המצות זה מתחיל עם הקדמה, עם הפסח שלפניו, באים ומקריבים את הפסח ב-14 לחודש הראשון. אנחנו צריכים לדעת מה עושים ואיך עושים. יש את החלק של הכהנים, אחרי שחיטה, וידע לשחוט, הכהן, ואז הכהן מקבל את הדם, מוליך את הדם למזבח, זורק את הדם, מפשיטים את עכשיו, זה החלק של הכהן. אז כל אחד מחזיק ברשותו כבש או עז, די, זכר בן שנתו. וצריך עכשיו לדעת לטפל בו. אנחנו מקווים שיהיה מספיק אנשים שידעו לטפל בדבר הזה. אז צריך להפשיט אותו ולהוציא ממנו את כל החלב. עכשיו אנחנו קראנו את זה, בדיוק כמו שבת האחרונה קראנו כמו שבוע. אנחנו קראנו את השבת הקרובה גם את הרשימה, לגבי קורבן אשם. רשימה, את החלב ומכסה את הקרב, ואת כל החלב אשר על הקרב, התורה חוזרת על העניין הזה, החלב של הקרב, החלב של כל החלב, מחלוקת הנעים, על החלב של הקיבה, והגינות, החלב של הקיבה הוא גם נקרא חלב או לא נקרא חלב. העיקרון הכללי, שכבר אומרת המכנה המשותף של כולם, שתותיו קרום ונקנף, ועשוי בצורה של קרום וזה נקנף בקלות, וצריך לגרד אותו. אז בעיקרון, לא אמרת שזה הלכות אכילה, כי באכילה יש גם דינים דרבנן, אסור לאכול דברים אחרים, אבל בדין של מה שמקפידים, הכלל הוא מה שמתקלף בקלות. אז לכן זה לא קשה להוריד את החלב של המעיים, חלב שמכסה את הקרב, את כל החלב אשר על הקרב, ואת שתי הקריות ואת החלב אשר עליהן, עד פה הכל בסדר. אבל מגיע החלב של הכסלים, החלב של הכסלים זה נמצא בפנים, על הרגל, אז צריך להוציא את הגיד הנשה, צריך להוציא את הגיד הנשה מאלה שפך את החור, אז צריך חור בשביל להוציא את הגיד הנשה, אז מגדילים קצת את החור בשביל להוציא את החלב של הכסלים, אבל צריך מומחיות גדולה לדעת להוציא את הכל, בלי זה המנקים היום מפשיטים ומפרקים את כל הבהמה בשביל להוציא את החלב הזה, וזה חלב שצריך להוציא אותו בשביל להקטיר אותו על המזבח. בכבש זה יותר קל, כי בכבש פותחים את העלייה גם, מוסיפים לכבש גם את העלייה, מורידים, ואז יש את החלב הזה שמקטירים. להקטין, וגם לוקחים, לא הזכרתי, ביותרת של הכבד, לוקחים חתיכה מהכבד, האצבע הכבד ועוד קצת, לוקחים מהכבד ואת כל זה צריך לעלות למזבח. ואחרי שגומרים להוציא את זה, מביאים את זה לכהן, עכשיו אותו זה חוזר לעבודת הכהן, הכהן צריך לשים מלח, להקטיר את זה למזבח, ועכשיו אנחנו, כל אחד מחזיק כבד, כלי, וצריך לדעת לפעול איתו, וגם זה, להתארגן, ללמוד איך לעשות את זה, צריך לצלות אותו ראשו על קרא ועל קריבו, מחלוקת ראשונים, הרמב"ם, והרעב"ד, מה עושים עם הקרובים, שאסורים את הרבנן, ומותר לאכול אותה מדאורייתא. שיטת הרמב"ם, שצולים את הבהמה, צולים אותה עם הכלי. ונגיד אנשי הדאורייתא לא נותן טעם, נגיד אנשי של הרבנן, צולים את החיצות את הראשו על קרא ועל קריבו, וצולים את הבהמה כולה. והרעב"ד אומר, אם יבוא לידיו כזה בהמה, אז הוא יזרוק אותו. הוא לא ייתן לאכול אותו. אז זה יהיה קצת בעיה. אם יהיה חבורה רבמית, אז דבר אחד, חבורה של הרייבד זה דבר אחר. אבל שבאמת לדעת שיש במהות החלב שהדאורייתא, גם לפי הרמב"ם לא משאירים, כי אותו מקטירים על המזבח. כן, אבל עכשיו, הבעיה שלנו זה החלב של דרבנן, שזה קרומים שחלקם בין למקטירים, כי הקרום שנמצא גם על הכליות, הקרומים שעל הכליות, עוד פעם, מקטירים אותם כי מקטירים את כל הכליות עם החלב שלהם, וכולל גם את הקרומים. הקרומים האחרים הם שאלה כמה הם שומניים בשביל שיתפשט הטעם, ולכן גם לפי הרעב"ד יכול להיות שהם יצטרכו להשליט את הכל. רק את האזור של השומנו של גיד ואת האזור של הקרומים. בכל אופן, לא, אני אומרת שיש קרומים של החלב ויש שומנו של גיד. יש עכשיו גם בגיד אנשי יש 3 חלקים. יש גיד אנשי דאורייתא שהוא לא נותן פעם. יש גיד אנשי דרבנן, שזה עוד חלקים בגיד, שלכאורה הם נותנים טעם, אסורים רק לדרבנן, ויש שומנו של גיד. הרמב"ם לומד שאת שומנו של גיד לא מוצאים, כי כיוון שיש מצווה מהתורה, ראשו על קרא ועל קריבו, לא מפסידים את המצווה מהתורה בגלל מנהג ישראל. רק אחרי שאומרים לצלות, אז מוצאים את המצווה. לא יכולים לקרוא, אבל...
תגיד גם בתלייה לפיה.
נכון, ואתה חושב שאחרי שאומרים לצלות, כמעט לא נשאר כלום משומנו של גיד. נשאר קצת, אבל לא הרבה.
אפשר להוציא את זה ולספח את זה בנפרד?
לא, זה לא יהיה ראשו על קרא ועל קריבו.
אבל זה מה, כן?
מדאורייתא, זה לא מעכב. מי שבאמת יגיע לרגע האחרון, רואה שאין לו אפשרות לצלות את הבהמה, ראשו על קרא ועל קריבו, אז שיחלק את זה לחתיכות, ויצלה את זה איברים ואיברים ויקשר. אבל זה יום לכתחילה, בשבת לא. מדברים עכשיו בשבוע הבא, אנחנו מקווים שלשנה הבאה כבר יהיה יותר מסודר. אבל מדברים על שבוע הבא, צריך לדעת מה אנחנו.
תורת הקורבנות הם
פשטות עניין, אבל רואים בגמרא בכל זאת שומנו של גיד הוציאו ולא אכלו אותו, זה אומר שגם אחרי הצלייה נשאר משהו. בכל אופן, אנחנו עומדים להיות מוכנים, אז מגיע הלילה הגדול, נכון, בשעה שפסח מצה ומרור מונחים בפניך, וסיפור יציאת מצרים, תודה, להקפיד לגמור את הגמרא פסח עד חצות, או לא יודע אם התנאים יש הרבה שעושים כל מיני שנים, תנאי של העבור נדר, אין כזה דבר, בפסח חייבים לגמור את הגמרא חצות, כל הדעות, או ברבנן או מדאורייתא, חייבים לגמור את הגמרא. אז לכן, להזדרז ולהתחדר, להתחיל את הסדר מוקדם, כמובן פסח באמת, אז הקדוש ברוך הוא יעזור, זה יהיה למעשה, זה יהיה לנו הלכה למעשה, לכאורה, בסוגיה אני לא בדקתי את זה לגמרי, אבל אני חושב שבסוגיה יוצא שאסור מדרבנן לאכול חטא. אסור שם יבוא לידי איסור חמץ. לכן זה לא כמו מצוות מצה שמי שלא אכל לפני, הוא יוכל אחרי אבל הוא לא יבוא לידי איסור. אבל בקורת זה לא פשוט, ולכן להצטרף אסור להתחיל בלילה, אבל להתחיל מיד ולעשות את הסדר ולאכול את קורת פסח. ואם נזכה להיות גם טהורים, אז למחרת בבוקר נעלה לרגל עם עולת בנייה ושמי חגיגה
להגיד קדש, קדש שמי רבה, עמד יברח יבוטי, בני מלכותי, וצמח כל קנה וקרם משיחי, היכול להביא מכל מכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ומואמן. יהי שמי רבה בעולם אומר, יפרח יקרח יפרח כמו נשאי, תודה ותלבת אל שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילה וכל ביחתה ושירתה ושתה ונחמתה, דמלן בעלמה ומואמן, עם ישראל רבנן ועל תלמידינו ועל כל תלמידינו ועל כל מען דסקים ברית, דיבה תרה קדישה אדם כל אתה ואתה, יהיה לנו נכון שלם הרב, אחינו וחיסר רחמי וחי זני וחי, פורקנה משמעיה והרב, ואמרו אמן. יש לנו בשמיים חיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עשה שלום ברומה וברחמה ועשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. Okay, so let me now translate or paraphrase what the rabbi said. He spoke longer than usual this week because he discussed the first he said that the holidays are not meant, the three holidays, Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot are not meant for people to sit at home. They're meant for people to come up to Jerusalem. It's a, what we call Aliyah LaRegel. It's a going up for the holiday, going up to Jerusalem, coming to the Temple Mount. So he said Shabbat is for people to sit at home and rest. But the holidays are not for people to sit at home and rest, but for people to come to Yerushalayim, come up to the temple. This is discussing the Passover offering, which, if there's a miracle happens, we'll bring it next week, the 14th of Nisan, the day before Passover, and then so he discussed the intricacies of slaughtering the Passover offering and what different halachas that involve, different laws, rituals that are involved in slaughtering the sheep or the goat that are brought as a Passover offering, and it's very complicated. He said it's very important that people know what has to be done, because if they don't know what to do, then obviously there's no reason that God will give us the miracle. So it's very important people know what has to be done, and it's very complicated, because there are parts of the animal that can't be eaten and have to be brought up to the altar to be burned, and whatever can be eaten has to be saved to eat that night at the Seder. Of course, what happens at the Seder is a real Seder, not what we do, Galut exile Seder, but a real Seder, it revolves around the Korban Pesach, the Passover offering, because that's the main purpose of having the Seder, that we have the matzah and the maror and the meat from the Passover offering, and we eat it all together, and then everything that we eat is considered a fulfilling commandment from the Torah. If we don't have the Passover offering, then there's a question mark whether it's from the Torah. It's really just a rabbinical law, because we don't have the Passover offering. Here we see here, just looking here, is the gate of Sha'ar Rachamim, the gate of mercy. See here, the Arabs have taken it over. They run the show over here. This is the only gate on the eastern side of the Temple Mount. Under the rugs over there are the you can see maybe in the distance some wood. These are wooden beams that were taken out from under the Temple Mount, and somebody took pieces of them and did carbon. What do you call that? Carbon testing. They did that testing, see how old it is. And there's wood there that goes back to the time of the Second Temple. The Arabs tried to burn it. They tried to destroy it. They did everything possible. and finally it was just thrown there in the corner under the rugs. But they try to destroy any kind of remnant from before they built their mosques here, from the time of the temple. So in any event, the rabbi explained that when we have the Seder, we have to, of course, the important thing is that we have to eat the Passover offering, the meat of the Passover offering. We have to finish it before midnight, and then, you know, you have to eat the meat. You have to have a big appetite, you know, and eat a lot of meat. We have to have a lot of people there, so you share it with them.
Yep.
And you can't leave anything left over. All the meat has to be eaten. Like, there's a lot of noise here. One second. There's a lot of meat that has to be eaten, and you can't eat it. You can't eat the. You have to, before you eat the Passover offering, you have to eat it on a full stomach. It's not like you can come and say, "Well, I'll starve myself and then eat the meat." No, you have to eat it on a full stomach. In fact, when we're pure, in a state of purity, we bring also at the same time what we call a chagiga, another offering that's brought on the holiday to eat before we eat the Passover offering, so that when we eat the Passover offering, we're already basically satiated. The idea behind that is that the Passover offering is supposed to be eaten totally for the purpose of the commandment, for the mitzvah, and it's not to be eaten because you're hungry or you're just you know, have an urge to eat meat. The whole concept is to remember the commandment that we were ordered in Egypt, like we mentioned before, to take the sheep, tie it to the bedpost, slaughter it on the night of the 14th, the evening before Passover, and then take the blood. In Egypt, we put it on the bedpost, on the doorposts. Put the blood on the doorpost so that the angel would pass and not kill the Jews that were inside the houses. And then, of course, they ate the meat of the Passover offering. So we commemorate that every year. We're supposed to commemorate it every year by bringing the Passover offering here on the Temple Mount. Of course, it hasn't been brought in 2,000 years because of our sins and our lack of willingness to stand up to the enemies of Israel and the enemies from within and the enemies from without, and take back what belongs to us and renew the service. So here we are for another Passover. This, well, right now. So what we do now to commemorate the Passover offering is we eat what's called the afikoman at the Seder, right? The afikoman is a half of one of the matzah that we have at the Seder, and that we eat that before midnight. Before midnight, we eat this matzah in commemoration of the Passover offering. To remember that. Obviously, it's kind of weird to eat a piece of matzah. I think it reminds us of eating the meat from the Passover offering, but at least we should know that's the idea why we eat it. Why we have this thing, the afikoman. Of course, it's turned into here's an Arab. Listen to this guy here. Listen to the guy here. He's young. He says, we don't belong here. This is a Muslim place. This is only for the Muslims, he says. Get out of here.
Yeah, you know, and that's why the IRA definition of anti-Semitism has to be implemented right away. No Jew haters should ever be allowed on Har HaBayit. That's one of the things that we want to accomplish, and that has to be. You can't have any Jew haters up there, period.
Yeah, the guy's complaining. Why are we filming him? Why are we filming him?
Yeah, why are we filming him? Yeah, we'll get the cops to put them in the cuffs and throw them away.
Which they takes, that films us every week
Yeah,
over here.
yeah,
Yep. Oh,
yeah. Look at those
here comes the
invaders.
cavalry. Here comes the reinforcements.
Yep.
Oh, oh, they're arresting him. Ooh, nice.
Good.
Nice.
Can you show it?
Yeah,
Let the viewers see that a bit? That he's getting cuffed and getting the hell out of there. We don't need people like that on Harabayat. We go up there, we come up in peace, we're talking Torah, we're learning Torah, and you have these anti-Semites that try and interrupt our Torah studies.
Okay, so they did their job today. The police
Good.
took care of the one of the anti-Semites up here.
Yep.
And it's all, and it's all it's not the Jewish cops that do it. It's unfortunately, it's the Jewish cops that do it.
The Jews.
Give them one day to give them just one free day, to kill as many of them as possible. There won't be many Arabs left in this country. They know what to do with the Arabs. Unfortunately,
the Jews, yes.
Yeah, they've suffered plenty from the Arabs. Okay. Okay, so we had a little action today for our audience, seeing the Israeli police, at least here on the Temple Mount, enforcing the law, which is a breath of fresh air, as they say.
Yep. Yes.
Okay, so the police aren't sure which route we're going today. The guys are a little confused. They don't know what they're doing, but okay, we'll just keep going. So anyhow, the portion we discussed the Great Sabbath and the Passover offering. Oh, again, I was mentioning before that Arab guy started yelling and freaking out.
Yep.
I was mentioning that in the Seder today, the Afikomen has become like a game where the head of the Seder hides it, and the kids are supposed to find it, and they get a prize for finding it, and so on.
Right.
Where that developed, how that developed, I have no idea. But again, unfortunately, I think people miss the point of the Afikomen. There's interesting. There are a lot of people. What they do is on Friday. On Erev Passover, when the time is we're supposed to be working, doing the Passover offering, right? Bringing it as a sacrifice on the Temple Mount. People are making what they call matzah, Passover matzah for the Seder. They're baking matzah for the Seder to be used as the Afikoman. Because again, like we mentioned before, that the Afikoman is supposed to remind us of the Passover offering. So by working on baking that matzah at the time that you're supposed to be doing the Passover offering, it makes the connection between the two. Okay, that the Afikoman is a proxy for that. So Rabbi Elbaum, of course, one of the leaders of the Temple Mount movement, he made a joke about that. He says, a very sarcastic joke, but he said, can you imagine what would happen if all of a sudden we got the permission to go and build the altar and bring the sacrifice of the Korban Pesach, of the Passover offering, and we told all the Jews, let's go, come on, we're going up. And a lot of them would be saying, well, we can't do it. We're busy baking matzah for the Afikomen. It's like instead of doing the real thing, a lot of Jews are just stuck doing a lot of Jews are basically stuck on the ritual as developed in the exile, and not in doing the real thing. Okay, here we're here this week. We were allowed to come over here on the western side. You see the wall here, hidden.
Right.
You make it out the wall here. You see these
Yes.
stones.
Yep.
Is the real western wall. I'm standing right
Right.
now. I'm standing on top of the real western wall, not what they call the kotel, but the real
Right.
western wall inside the Temple Mount,
Right.
which is hidden between the stones of the floor and the steps, so that the people don't see the real western wall. Now,
Right.
yeah, it's it's really thick. Now we don't know. It goes down. We don't know how far it goes down, but for the distance from here to the eastern wall, it works out perfect. That this is the real wall. The western wall that they call the kotel is too far. It's too far from the eastern wall, and it can't be the real wall. So we know that it's a Herodian addition. A Herodian addition, or as the King Herod, the evil king, who basically killed all the rabbis and killed off the Hashmonai family of the Maccabees. He built this retaining wall, this wall over here, to the west, and we see here over here the Jordanian flag. The King of Jordan's buried there, King Abdallah, and other enemies of Israel.
Yeah, that's another thing that's going to have to be addressed. That where they set up these burials for these Jew haters, and I think the Hajj Alami Husseini family is buried there also, and he was the mufti that collaborated with Hitler. His family is buried there as well. That's another issue that we have to address and get out that that reality has to be changed.
Well, I'll tell you, Mayor, I agree with you 100%, obviously, but remember one thing. Netanyahu and the governments of Israel are busy trying to make peace agreements, the Abraham Accords so anything that happens here has to get consideration, of course. How it will affect
I don't know how the redemption exactly is going to happen, but I know that the start of the state of Israel, that was the beginning of the redemption. That's what Rabbi Kahana said. That's what Rav Kook said. Many said, and I don't know how things are going to. We don't know how things are going to exactly evolve, but we know once there is a temple that those graves that they put there of these Jew haters are not going to be there. So, how it's going to happen, exactly when, but that is a topic that has to be discussed anyways, and it's got to it can't be swept under the rug. This was deliberate, and this was to try to either humiliate Jews or they think that this is some way that it's going to be a contamination to the kohanim, that they can't enter because of that. We're allowed to exhume them and move them. We're allowed to do that.
Oh, of course, no doubt about it. But Rabbi Elbaum, he's very sarcastic. He said, maybe instead of what do you call it, one of those Jordanian kings, we could put in there some big rabbi, and then all Jews will want to come up because they love to go to graves of rabbis.
There you go.
Oh boy, it's Rabbi Khan had a great saying that he always used. He would say the oilam goyim.
Yep.
That's what we are. The Jews are the oilam goyim. It's just nothing makes sense. It's like people just it's like rote, their lives are the same thing every day. They don't question anything. They don't question anything about what's going on. You would think that the Jews, that every Jew would say to himself, wait a second. The Temple Mount, is that supposed to be a place for Arabs to pray in or a place for Jews to pray in? How could it be The Jews are not allowed to serve God on Temple Mount, and Arabs are. Doesn't make any sense. But they come up with all these, because of 2,000 years of exile,
Yeah.
they've come up with all these excuses of why they're not obligated to, and not only not obligated, but they're forbidden from serving God on the Temple Mount. Which, it's totally ridiculous.
Yep.
And
You know,
anybody, any thinking person would understand that. These people just don't think. I don't know what it is.
well,
Like being married.
maybe there has to be a demand from Itamar, or maybe B'Tselem Smotrich, or a combination, that there's got to be some funding allocated for education for regarding Harbite, and a widespread of proper Jewish education, the Jewish idea to really get across in Israel, that that they're in government, there should be funding allocated for that. And that's one of the mechanisms, or one of the tools that could be used to.
Well, actually, but actually, you're mentioning
Mhm.
something that happened a
Mhm.
few years ago when Miri Regev from the Likud party was the Minister of
Right.
Education,
Right.
and she did allocate funding for an authority that was their
Mhm.
job, was to educate, and I don't know, and I didn't know what happened. It's
Mhm.
like disappeared into thin air. I asked
Right.
Yehuda Etzion, well, whatever happened to that? And he said, it was it's like unbelievable that, there was this authority, there was a guy appointed to be head of it, there was a
Right.
budget, and and yet, in the end, it's like everybody's a coward. They're afraid to
Right.
really do what they're supposed to do, and
Right.
and they get threatened, they get
Right.
and people are just afraid that the press will get them, the leftists will get them,
Right.
the courts will get them, the police will get them. It's unbelievable. There's
Mhm.
really no backbone here. There's no one to stand up to them.
Mhm.
It's getting to the point where you have to say to yourself, well, you know what? I think we've gone as far as we can. We need now some divine intervention to take us forward, because the Jews are stuck in this quagmire of exile thought that doesn't allow them to see what's right in front of their faces,
Right.
and they're busy. My son won a bid on doing a project by the Western Wall tunnels.
Mhm.
Okay, they're investing all the money on the tunnels outside the
Right.
Temple Mount by the Kotel, which is, like we said,
Right.
was a Herodian addition. They're
Yep.
not spending the money inside the Temple Mount
Right.
for the purpose of educating the Jews. So here we are, completed another Torah class on the Temple Mount,
Mhm.
with the with the group, the weekly group that comes up here every day. Actually, every day at 7 in the morning they come up.
Right.
We join them once a week with the rabbi, the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Weber,
Mhm.
and with his insights on the sacrifices and serving in the temple, which is very important that we have rabbis like him who know all the intricacies of the halachas involving the sacrifices, and
Right.
so that when the time comes and we can do something, we have people who know how to do it.
Absolutely.
And of course, we had today big VIP, former Knesset member Yehuda Glick.
Mhm.
Here he's standing now. Yehuda Glick is now singing the Atikva at the entrance to the
Oh,
Temple
wow.
Mount here at the gate. Let's see if the police drag him away or not. Right now, they're letting him sing. Oh, here comes the cop. He's here. The cop is now pushing him away.
Right.
Okay. So next week is the last Torah class on the Temple Mount before Passover.
Yep.
So we'll do it, I guess, on Monday.
Yep. And then we could do it Chol Hamoed.
Chol
After that.
Hamoed. All right.
Excellent. Well, this is
Okay.
great. It educates Jews and it's taking action. Baruch, thank you very much. And
Okay.
we'll be with you next week.
Okay. Take care.
Have a wonderful day. Yep. Thank you very much for everyone for joining us, and please share this on whatever platform you use, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp groups, email lists. We'll reach a lot more people, and that's the whole idea. So thank you very much, and shalom, shalom.